Hello, transformation is the station of identification, to transform self. Science teaches us that we're the body. Religion teaches us that God is in the sky. Well, truth, we have a body. Truth, God is in the sky, but God is everywhere. Meaning God is within you and me. God is in the whale. God is in the dolphin. God is in the tree. God is in the plant. God is in the bush. God is in the almond you eat. God is in each particular thing of the physical realm. But the physical is not God. But our science teaches chemical science and technology as though that is the new God. But it is not the new God. But they want you to believe that they have been figuring it all out. In order for our science to become a true religion, they have to have a good backbone of truth. To make up your own rules of computerization and start pretending that's the new God is not helping humanity. We want to integrate humanity with God's laws, God's truths into humanity, rather than take a piece of inorganic matter that was invented by man and say, this is God. Well, it's a good tool. It's a great tool. And it does what a machine does, which is mechanisms. And it does not have consciousness. They're trying to pretend and trick you that it does. It does not. It's a machine. A machine does not have spirit. It is a program. Well, many people, unfortunately, are programs, and you have to wake up from your program. That's why there's this battle going on in the consciousness between science and religion, between self, lower self, and higher self. You're learning to master your machine or your program. That's why programs are getting so popular with AI, saying the program is it. In other words, numb out to your true identity and become merged with the program. No, you have to transform the program. In order to transform, you got to be aware. Where does the word tranny come from? Or trans? It comes from transform. So these guys, girl guys, or guy girls that are transforming, through chemicals and through surgery, right? That's all man stuff. That's not God stuff. That's man stuff. So they're identifying as a female, but the genitalia is a male. Well, so what? That's the choice of the person. That's what they want to do. There's all this crazy stuff happening because of it. But, it is what it is. So you got someone identifying with both genders. They feel like a female, but they've got a penis, right? Which is a male. And so they want to do both, right? Well, guess what? If science gets more real, this would, take a lot of money. Nowadays you buy a medication, it's $100 for a little couple pills, right? It's more about monetary value than it is the being or the essence of the person, which is where science, true science, would want to go for humanity if it was helping it better, it's unfortunate that we have to destroy things to understand that destruction is not what we want. We want construction, which is the two forces of life, construction or destruction, and getting more neutral from the destruction. So the person says that the tranny, says that they are identifying with the female or their mother, or a lot of times they have a lot of unbeknownst jealousy programmed in their mind. A lot of times the father or the mother may be very masculine or the father may be very feminine. And when that's out of order, then it creates a child that polarizes that even further. So they relate to the opposite gender of what they are. And a lot of times the soul comes in at the 4th month, not at the 1st month, but it is chosen, those parents. There's a conversation between themselves and these beings that are for God. And then they do, okay, that's the one down there. And then they know what they're supposed to do. And they come and they're born. And then they identify and they start to reconstruct, transform their identity. Now, this is because in the previous life, generally, they were females. The soul was a female. So it's still relating to the female. And so it can relate to the energetics of the feminine or the emotions more. It doesn't relate with the mental as strong. It has the mental capacitance to think. A person does. Everyone does. But it identifies more as, well, I identify with feminine. And so then it wants to be the physical of the feminine because our science pushes the physical as that's who you are, is the physical. So now we get a whole slew of new people now identifying as trannies, and it's becoming the new wave, and science is making more money through the operations and the pills instead of like looking at the cause at the soul level to start to relate. And it's not bad or good or right or wrong. It's just a misuse of God's energy that gets out of hand. It's not because of a tranny. It's because man has manipulated God's laws so much on the physical realm, it's creating pollution, it's creating world wars, atomic bombs, it's creating manslaughter and acting like that's fine, instead of seeing how can we create more peace? How can we create more trust between nations? And we say, well, we've done this, we've already done this. No. Nuh-uh. World War I, World War II, huh? Come on. And now, people are casting out that World War III because of our president or because of this or that, right? Come on. Where's the trust? Where's the faith? Where's the hope? In humanity. Where is it? Well, we keep creating new rules to create new laws to create human beings to fight each other to see what's going to dominate. That is the third dimension. That is the dimension that science holds to. It's not vibrating higher science. It's vibrating control of the masses through ignorance instead of teaching each that they're a soul and they do have a choice. Our Montessori schools are starting to do that back since the 80s. There's some other schools, home schools are doing that. But in our public schools, man, the kids have to bring guns and knives and everything to hold their dominance up. And if you're a tranny and you go to that school, they're going to rip you apart, the holy roller ones that, are like, that's totally wrong. Why can't we accept each other? There's many ways, right? If someone chooses this, they chose that. That's their life. And if you can't make people believe you, if you are a tranny and you want them to totally believe you, sorry, some people aren't going to do it. And if you're, like a redneck and you're like, everyone's got to, be like a redneck, well, sorry, everyone's not going to be like a redneck. We all have different personalities. We all have different ways and customs. But we're learning how to become our truer self. And our truer self is identified with the soul, not the ego, not the mind body. But science teaches us we're the mind body. They teach us that the computer program is better than you. That's not true. And so if you're a soul, you can reason on that and see that. But if you're lost in the program, you can't see it. You don't want to transform yourself because you're seeing the program they want you to see instead of seeing your program. your identity. So there's levels to transformation, and each level is depicted by choice, by action, by habit. That's how you change. That's how you transform. So a transformer takes electrons and protons of energy source, of electrical source, and supplies it to another center, which becomes like magnetic. So it downloads the electric of one source into the magnetic of another source by what they call a coil, primary and secondary coil. A coil, because it's a wire that's wrapped around another piece. In other words, iron at the core and copper wires around the other, which creates electrical charge. Well, in the body, if you don't have enough iron, and a lot of people have that problem, they don't have enough iron, so they give them this fake iron that's synthetic, and it constipates them and it irritates them. We need natural sources of iron. They work far superior. And if you do take that type, you want to make sure you got vitamin C with it, which is an antioxidant. It's a marriage pair for iron, and it helps to balance out the toxicity of the iron. If you get too much iron, you become a bitch. If you get too much iron, you become a headstrong, don't mess with me, excessiveness. And when that turns on, that becomes iron loading problem in the body. But the coil needs enough iron, or the chakra needs enough iron at certain levels to function better. The gonads need iron. The second chakra needs a little iron. The third chakra needs a little iron. In other words, the gonads, the adrenals, and the pancreas. If you get too much iron, you become a prick. You become rigid. You become, like a bull. And it's because you're not sensing. You're just on the machine. You're on do. Get out of my way. I'll get this done. You're in my way. This type of thing. That's not the soul. That's the mind body. If your parent was like that, you got it. You're going to go through it. And if you master it, then you will find yourself as a soul more. So you want to understand your tendencies so you can transform your tendencies that come through you from your ancestors. If your ancestors were beat up, humiliated, right? You're going to go through that if you're going to want to grow. If you were one of your parents beat on the other one, maybe not physically, maybe emotionally, and maybe mentally, you're going to go through that as you're transforming. It's normal. But what are you trying to do? Become aware. Become knowledgeable. See it as a reflex. Why? Because the reflex is at the program level. You can't get to the program if you don't know the level that it exists at. What am I talking about? Well, if mom didn't feel safe around dad, maybe she did sometimes, but for the most part, she just had to be a robot to him. And you're changing. You're going to go through that. You're going to see, oh, this is the robot that mom had towards dad. Oh, that's what I don't like. Oh, who am I identifying with? The robot of dad being pressured, being a prick, and the acquiescence of mother being, automaton to the dad, because that's the sperm and that's the ovum, and you get programmed, they're programmed. And unless you know their program of what you're programmed, you cannot know yourself. Evolution is the revolution. That's the true identification of why you're on Earth. It's not to become a big shot, get $1 million and think you'll run the world, which science tries to preclude, and billionaires try to preclude as though that's the discovery of life. No. It's learning to manage yourself. That's the transformer. That's the reality. And the ones that transform themselves from lower to higher master their lower chakras and integrate them in their heart, which is the level of the heart, fourth level, 1, 2, and 3 to 4. 4 is heart. How do you do that? You have to know what's on the lower levels to transform them. What does that mean? Well, it means you have to have safety first level. It means you have to create with God, second level. It means you have to create to the social world what you're creating with yourself better, third level. Many people imitate their parents' social, the third level, and they're just imitating whatever the father or the mother did socially. Well, you can do that, you can have that, you can play that, but you got to see, is that who I really am? Or am I something different? Am I something that's unique to God more? Am I something, is my talent different than that? Or am I supposed to advance that talent? You got to find that out. A lot of times it's advancement of that talent. Many times it's, well, that's their talent. I like their talent, but I see that that's not totally my piece. And then you learn to transmutate the electricity of it that is being transformed into awareness. Oh, I'm aware that I'm doing that. Oh, I see I'm doing that. Is that me? Is that what I want to do? Well, I feel good when I do it, so I'll do it. And then all of a sudden, I'm not satisfied like I used to be. That means you got to transform. Transformation or perpetual transmutation of radiant energy, aka change, is the key factor between the self and life. When you're bored out of your mind, you're doing the same old thing, same old stuff. You're not creating with God, you're creating with the same old pattern. And then a lot of times people blame other people for that instead of blaming themselves, saying, oh, it's me. I'm the one that's doing that. Oh, I'm making some misapplied decisions. That's where you got to get smarter. That's where you got to know how to change that reaction. When you do that, you move. You move out of the bore. If you're frustrated, that means that you keep doing the same thing over and getting the same results. That's frustration, move forward, didn't get anywhere. Move forward. Why is it still here? Why? And then if you're frustrated for a long time, then you get angry at the frustration. You have to sit back, you have to analyze yourself, and you have to see, well, why am I so frustrated? And what am I doing to create that frustration? And how can I change that? You got to take notes, not just a topical, sprinkle on the plant. No, feed it. Feed the plant. The plant's the body. The plant is consciousness. The plant is knowing the seeds of thoughts that you keep doing that are incorrect and stopping them and planting some real thoughts on the inside, some real nutrition to the identity of the body or the emotion or the mind, feeding it differently. So thoughts are things, they're electromagnetic forces. And if you keep doing the same thought, you get the same results. If you transform the thought, you start to change the identification. Study your thoughts. They'll tell you a lot.